Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and
What's my name?
what is your name? What is it?
That my cue?
Phil and Adam.
Hey, Adam, how are you?
I'm good. Phil, do you remember when we first started this podcast in the throes of COVID and we really struggled with the timing of your name, you saying your name, me saying mine? I just felt like a throwback moment.
Okay, all right. That was very throwback.
Anyway, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm okay. I'm like on a high low. Like I'm not really feeling the best, but things are going well at school, and Anais is feeling better. So good.
Physically, you're not feeling the best.
Yeah, I have a little cold, but I'm here.
Well, I'm glad that you are here.
Yes. How are you?
I'm doing well. And just a quick, before we get into a very exciting episode with a very special guest, I want to just share this little tidbit. You know how, when you get asked to do a gig, or for me it's a guest conducting, they often will ask you for a bio.
Right.
Yeah, it took me when I first began my career and started getting those gigs, and realized that you write your own bio. For some reason, that surprised me. But anyway, okay. So now I'm a few years in, and I'm like, okay, I've got to send them my bio, and I have it on a specific place on my Google Drive, and so every year I make sure I go in and update it and make sure that it's current. And so I got a gig to conduct a festival in March, and so I went in to update my bio last week, and there were a few things I needed to change, update, and then I realized that the last paragraph of my bio I never really liked. It was about my service organizations, to what the things I'm members of, and that he served on the board of blah and whatever, and I'm like, that's so boring. That's not very interesting. And so instead I changed it to a paragraph about how Dr. Potter lives in Rochester with his adorable dog Bee, and is passionate about travel, food, coffee, and committed friendships, and
sounds good.
Hosts the podcast We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and Adam, which is available on all major platforms.
You added some pressure, because now
that's the way that I'm going to increase our listenership.
Right. But I also I'm very touched that I have a permanent place in your bio.
As long as permanent. I just told you I update it every year.
Don't make me laugh too much.
For the gigs I get in the next year, your name will be mentioned, Phil.
Okay. Thank you. Well, at least for the brief time that is there.
Yes.
I appreciate
Phil,
it.
do you want to attend to any housekeeping before I introduce our guest?
Well, just tell everybody, please check us out wherever you find us. We're everywhere.
I'm doing that in my bio now.
Right.
Which really shouldn't be called a bio. It should be called an auto bio, because I wrote it myself.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Dear listeners, it is my pleasure to introduce Phil's former professor, my former colleague, and both of our friend, and a person who is our current friend, Dr. Laurissa Backlin. Laurissa, welcome to the show. It's really great. It's really great to have you. So Laurissa and Phil and I all know one another from Delta State University, home of the Fighting Okra. And Laurissa, just like Phil and I have moved on, Laurissa also has moved on and is now an associate professor of music at Carson Newman University in Tennessee. That's right. Tennessee? Okay, awesome. All right. I'm reading from your bio page on the Carson Newman website, and I could not remember. So I'm glad that. Okay. So Dr. Backlin received a DMA from the University of North Texas, an awesome school, where she was the recipient of a fellowship. Prior to coming to Carson Newman, she was assistant professor of music at, guess where? Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. She has appeared all over the place as a soprano soloist and professional choral singer. She has presented at lots of conferences because she's really smart and really engaging. And every summer I get to see Laurissa because we are both on faculty at the Chaffee Summer School of Music. And I would look forward to Chaffee anyway, but I would look forward to Chaffee far less if I did not get to see Laurissa Backlin and just like see my buddy who I don't get to see every day anymore, but at least I get to see her in the summer. So again, welcome to the show, our very smart, very talented, very beautiful, very charismatic friend, Laurissa Backlin.
Thank you so much. Oh, what a wonderful introduction. I hope I can even live up to it.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Well, it's just so good to see both of you. And Phil, I haven't seen you for how many years? Do you think 6?
Yeah, well, I think 2016, 2017.
I was thinking about that. I was like, I think it's been about 6 years since I've seen you.
Yeah.
It's
you
just
know
so
what
good to
that
see.
means? That means that I am getting old and Laurissa is staying the same age.
Yes, I go backwards actually.
Yeah, you're the Benjamin Button of voice teachers.
That's right. let's say that, sure.
Yes.
Well, I do want to say real quick to Phil, congratulations on getting married and being a father. I think that's just so great. And I just wanted to tell you that we're friends on Facebook, but I wanted to say it verbally. So
Thank you.
Yes, Phil is definitely living the dream.
that's great.
I guess so. Yes, great. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you.
Okay. Yes.
Laurissa. I almost called you Dr. Backlin, but I may call you that. I may call you that. You know, like that's the thing about, I guess, graduating. You kind of change, but yes. So it's really nice to talk to you too, Laurissa.
You did it. Good job. Yeah.
So Laurissa, can you just tell us? I gave you, I gave the professional bio version, which, amazingly enough, you had to write yourself. I didn't realize until I was well into my career. But can you just give us your story in the general overview from person who discovered music to person who is now making music professionally?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I would say I've been doing music since I've been a little girl. I started taking piano lessons. I sang in my children's choir at church. And those were my 2 things that I mainly did. I took violin lessons for 1 year when I was in 6th grade, and that didn't last for more than a year. But it was fun for that 1 year. But I said to myself, I'm never going to make it in violin, so let's just give up now. It's too late.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I just kept going with my piano lessons, and then I started taking voice lessons, and I got more serious about singing in high school, basically, maybe junior high school. I loved it, and I was thinking about maybe some other majors as well, possibly, but then when push came to shove my senior year, I just said, I can't really see myself doing anything else but being a music major.
Wow.
So,
okay, what were those other majors? I'm so curious. What would you have been?
Well, another one that I was seriously looking at was actually political science, interestingly enough. Yeah, I was really kind of into politics
Really?
during my high school years. So I thought about that for a while.
I think you should run.
Okay.
President Backlin, doesn't that have a good ring to it, Phil?
It does. It does.
Okay,
Well-
so you decided on music, not poli-sci.
That's correct.
And where did you end up?
Then I went to Wheaton College in Illinois, and I was a voice performance major there, and got my degree in 4 years. Got it done, and after that is sort of like, okay, now what's really going to happen? I want to perform. Also, I could see myself teaching at the college level, so that was something that I always kind of felt like, I think that's going to happen for me at some point, is to be a college professor, but I knew that was a long way away. So the next step was to then go to graduate school, and I took a year off after my undergrad and just saved some money, lived with my parents, and they were very kind to not charge me rent. And I had a job, of course, so I was making money. And then I saved up enough money. I went to graduate school at Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Kept living with my parents, which helped to save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Got my master's in vocal performance. And then from then I really started getting into teaching at that point. So I was teaching a lot of private voice lessons. Also had a part-time job as an administrative assistant for Lockheed Martin. So I was making some money in that way and teaching and getting some singing gigs in the Philadelphia area. So I was, piecing together a living for a good while. And then in my late 20s or so, I'll just give you the whole story. Why not? So I started dating somebody, and he was living in Texas, and it was looking fairly serious. So I was looking actually at getting my doctorate in Texas so that we could be closer. That's how UNT came into the mix for my doctorate. And like I said, I had always kind of thought about teaching anyway at the college level, so this was not out of the blue, but having the boyfriend kind of spurred it on, I suppose.
It was the impetus you needed.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I auditioned, and I did get in for my doctorate at UNT, and then we broke up, the boyfriend and I. So I had not actually moved to Texas yet. So at that point, I decided to wait a year before going to Texas, because I really wanted to make sure that I was doing it for myself and not for him, if that makes sense. So I did take a year and really thought about it again. I auditioned again and got a fellowship that second audition. So God was good in that respect, because then my doctorate didn't cost me any money. So that was a huge blessing. Huge blessing. So yeah, that's when I got to UNT and I got my doctorate there, and I taught voice lessons there while I was being a student, sang in my church choir, and it was a really good experience. It was really difficult and challenging in many ways, but overall I had a really, really good experience at University of North Texas. And then after that, then you just apply for jobs and hope that you find a job. And I did teach for 1 year as an adjunct professor at Dallas Christian College, and I was doing music lessons and music history, some sight singing and that kind of thing. And then I got the job at Delta State as the assistant professor of music. So that pretty much catches us up. And so since then, I've been teaching full-time as a college professor, and continuing to sing and perform. And it's been really good. It's been also challenging and hard in some ways, for sure, but it's very fulfilling. It's very, very fulfilling to teach college students. I very much enjoy that age group a lot. So that's maybe a little bit more than you wanted to know.
No, that was perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's good. Let me ask this question. So going back to the poli-sci, what do you like? what was it that you thought you wanted to do with that, or did you have an idea about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was pretty vague. I thought
Okay.
maybe going into like the UN, maybe being an ambassador. I didn't even really know. I also knew that I liked to travel. I liked foreign languages. I enjoyed taking French. So something along that lines of foreign policy, UN kind of a thing. But when you're in high school, you don't really know any details beyond that.
Okay. Do you watch Madam Secretary?
No, but I need to because I know people really love it.
Yes. Because now I'm just thinking of that you could have been Madam Secretary.
Maybe.
I mean,
A
and
big
you
maybe.
like you could still be, you could still be that ambassador to whatever, to whatever that country is you would like to go to, France or
Well,
somewhere else.
you're right. The beauty of music is that we do travel anyway. And so we absolutely are making connections through music, and that can turn into some wonderful political opportunities as well. So, yes, you're right.
We are ambassadors of a sort, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say awkward segue. What would you say you are an ambassador of through music? What avenues has music opened for you?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind actually is when I was at Delta State. It was my last, no, it wasn't my last year. It was the year before I left. We went to South Korea, and that was a really great trip. We brought students. It was myself and my colleague, Jamie Dahman, and also our former chair, unfortunately, who has passed away, Karen Foschheim. So we were the three faculty members that went, and we brought students. And prior to that, the school that we visited, they came to Delta State with students and faculty, and just making those connections, learning about another culture. It was just so eye-opening, especially for the students who hadn't really maybe traveled as much and hadn't possibly maybe hadn't even left Mississippi. And I think that was a little unusual if it hadn't left Mississippi at all, but certainly many of them had not left the country. And so to go somewhere else that was pretty different in a lot of ways, that it was so exciting to see their excitement. Yeah, so I think just making connections and really understanding how music can bring people together. It is a way to commune with each other, even though the music itself might be different from culture to culture. You're still learning about each other through music, and so it's just I love it.
Yeah. It's so true. There is this, I don't know, they call music the universal language, which I think is a little misleading, right? Because it's
Right.
like you cannot communicate objective truths through
Exactly.
music. Like it does require translation, but there is this sense of togetherness, camaraderie that music can engender. I think, music, it does seem to bring out a side of the human spirit that is more open to people who are unlike us.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. And the learning about the other culture, or even just when you meet a friend, and you want to share what music you like, and then they share with you, and then you just kind of get to know each other better in that way. And it's just sort of a nice, non-threatening way of getting to know the other person, even if you don't like the other music at all that they like.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true.
I mean, it's a practice. I mean, it's a practice in tolerance, right? That you're listening, and even if you come away saying, "Okay, I may not listen to that again," I appreciate it because of a friend, and I actually have found that music can it will grow on you. You may not, the first time you listen to it, maybe you don't really appreciate it, and then you come to appreciate it. And so, have being open
Yeah.
to differences, and then allowing, you know, time or whatever to help you grow
Mm-hmm.
and change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So check in. Who has learned? Who has discovered an artist or a style through a friend that they hated initially and came to appreciate?
Mm, that's a
I'll
good
go
one.
first while you two think.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
think. My friend Ben introduced me to symphonic metal, and I really did not know what to think at first, but I I kind of don't mind symphonic metal.
Okay.
It's
Mm.
it's like it's grand. It has this cinematic scope. A lot of the uh, like even though there's a lot of like electronica in it, there's this particular band that where the lead singer, there's a female singer, is like using her head voice the whole time, like not just screaming. So I I'm kind of a fan
Can
now.
what's a band name?
Nightwish.
Nightwish. Okay.
Nightwish.
I'm gonna write that.
Oh yeah, look at Dr. Backlin, such an academic. She's writing it down
Writing
to
it
look up
down.
later. Okay,
Okay. Well,
who's
I
next?
I can think of no. I don't know many songs from this group, but actually, it's one of my voice students. Uh, he turned me on to Bon Iver. Do you
Oh
know them?
yeah, absolutely.
I would not have known about them if it hadn't been for one of my students. And so after listening to them, I was very impressed with the quality of the music.
Yeah, they're good musicians, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be one that I can think of. How about you, Phil?
I'm trying to think. I mean, it may be for me like um, just classical music in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Because
No, that's true.
oh yeah, because like in the States didn't really grow up with that. I remember going in. I started school at Southern Mississippi, and for my music appreciation class, we had to go listen to a orchestral work, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is a 30-minute long program, and we're listening to the same song for 30 minutes.
Right. It's so long.
I remember that night. I remember because I don't remember what they performed, but it was the choir, like there was a symphonic choir with the orchestra, and I don't remember that, but I don't remember what they sung. But I was like, this is 30 minutes long. I'm like, what are you doing for 20, 30 minutes of the same piece of music?
How much do you have to
Yeah.
say?
No clapping for 30
Yes,
minutes.
for 30 minutes.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's funny.
Yes, at that, and of course I've done major works, and so yeah, that
Yes.
probably that probably was the experience for me. But Bon Iver is really good. They there's I forget the song, but that it was it'll come back to me later. A question I have for you, Dr. Backlin. One of the things I've thought about, maybe another awkward segue. We have we in our music departments, right? We have performers and educators most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be this kind of that's a dividing line. You have people who are coming there because they want to perform, and those who are coming to school because they want to teach. And I remember talking to one of the performers, and I'm saying, I think we all will become educators at some point, or even as even as an educator, I enjoy performing. So like, did you struggle with the I don't want to be considered an educator, I want to be a performer, or vice versa?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, maybe a little bit, I suppose. Not a struggle necessarily. I would say there's an expectation, even for our, in our field as teachers in music, there is an expectation to keep performing. So, so that's good. Now, actually, I really love performing, but I get quite nervous. And I can go for a good while without performing and be perfectly fine. Because it's not comfortable for me to perform. And so, I'd rather be watching a movie on my couch. Because that's easy. Right. But obviously, when I'm doing it, I really do love it. It just takes a lot more work and energy. And of course, the preparation beforehand, you have to practice. And it's always one of those things where it's like, okay, I've got to practice. But then when I'm practicing and after I finish, I'm always just so glad and I enjoy it. So for me, it's the making myself get to the practicing. And once I do, I like it. But yeah, there is an expectation to keep performing. And so I feel like I'm getting tongue-tied. I do want to perform more, but it does take effort to keep putting my name out there and making contacts. It's just not easy to get gigs. So I want to perform more, both for my enjoyment of performing, from pushing myself to be better, and also because it looks good on the resume, and I need that for my for tenure. To be honest with you, I'm being really honest right now.
Oh, I appreciate the transparency. I'm thinking about this particular performer. She was so kind of horrified with the idea of becoming an educator, though. So it's like I think it was the opposite for her, that that one day she would teach, and maybe not so much perform as she did before.
Right.
I don't. Go ahead.
I think that there's a lot of people where that's what their dream was, to perform, and especially in the opera world, classical world, that was the goal for them to do it full time. I never had that goal. I wanted to perform, but I knew that I just really didn't love opera enough to go for it. I just didn't love it enough. I really like it, but you have to absolutely eat, sleep, drink, consume opera and absolutely love it for you to even have a chance at making it. Because you just have to audition all the time. And it's exhausting, It's a hard life. It's a very hard life. And I just didn't love it enough. So, I would say I'm different from that person that I knew, like I said, even in college, I just had this feeling that I was going to teach at the college level. So that's, I guess, what I really pursued mainly.
And now you're living the dream, just like Phil.
It is, I know, it's kind of interesting.
Yes.
It is interesting that it did happen. And I'm also just going to keep being really honest. It's tough though. It's a tough field. And academia right now is very much struggling. So I don't know, I don't know what the future holds for me. I'm doing it right now. I hope to continue doing it for the foreseeable future, but there's some struggles in the academic world. So I'm just trusting God.
You don't have to get too specific, but I mean, what are some of the most difficult struggles for you personally?
Well, in terms of academic, getting students really is really what it is. So this is across the board, across the nation.
Yeah, this is not, for our audience who's not aware, this is not unique to Laurissa's situation.
Yeah. Students are not going to college as much as they used to. So we are struggling for students. I live in East Tennessee, and it's a little bit more on the rural side of things, a lower economic bracket, and I teach at a Christian college, which we do give scholarship money and financial aid and everything. However, we're not a public institution, so the tuition is higher, and that can be a real factor in people's decision to come to Carson Newman. So really, it's getting students, and getting students that have had some good music education in the high school, I think, is also quite a challenge where I live. So
not just when you live.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's across the board.
Yeah, no, it is. It can be a real. I just. Yeah, ditto.
It's a generational thing too. Right. Yeah. So I would say those are the two biggest ones right now for me. So we're recruiting. We're starting right now, basically to really ramp up our recruiting efforts. So I'm just grateful that I do have a full load of teaching. I'm teaching certainly voice majors, and then also some non-majors. So that's good. My studio is full, which is really good. I'm teaching the women singers chorus choir. So that's a challenge as well for me, because I'm not trained as a conductor. So
but you've had so much choral experience.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But using the hands is a different kind of a thing.
Well,
that's how you should conduct.
That's how I do it. Here it is.
Phil and I can both attest that the actual conducting gesture is like almost the least important thing about being a successful choral conductor.
Right. Yeah,
well, that's good to hear, because my pattern is really not so good. I get off on my pattern all the time. I can keep the beat.
You can keep going.
Yeah, I just keep going.
Right. Circles. I love a good circle.
Circles.
It's all the one, just on the one.
Right.
Who needs 1, 2, 3, 4 when you can have 1, 1, 1, 1?
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
I'm teaching in the elementary school, and so for me, I would love to to see the students. I don't know, Adam, are you okay? I don't know if we lost Adam, but he'll come back.
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. I just want to check on him before I went on. But this is something we've talked about. We've had Chandler on as well, Chandler Smith.
Great, wonderful.
Yeah, and so we've had these conversations about connecting, making this pipeline, and. I see it like creating that enthusiasm in the student, and even if they don't want to, in elementary school, they don't really know what they want to do. Okay, I'm sorry. That's really, you threw me off. Sorry. But helping them just to experience different things and to see this is something you can do, this, and not only just like music is something you can do, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. But giving them those skills, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully they will have a good teacher or conductor in high school that will again encourage them and give them those skills to go on into college.
Right, absolutely. I just think doing music, we all know this as music educators, but doing music in the schools is it's just so important for the overall development of the child, the intellectual development, motor skills, emotional development, all of it, social. So it's just so important to keep teaching music in the schools. So thank you, Phil, for what you are doing, and teaching these kids. Oh my goodness, I'm sure they absolutely love you. It's just wonderful. We appreciate you.
They do, don't they, Phil? They love you.
They do. It's a
Good.
blessing because I don't think I wouldn't have said I was that interesting of a person, but they they really like me.
No, that's not true.
I think you're fascinating, Phil.
So to maybe switch gears a little bit. I hope I'll be praying about your recruiting. How has your faith, because that's something I wanted to touch on.
Yes.
U2, I auditioned for U2 when I came to Delta State, and I don't know. And when I came to Delta State, I actually started singing in a choir with you because we all were going to the same church at the time, a PCA church in Cleveland,
all
Mississippi.
three of us went to the same church.
That's right.
Yeah.
We were, and so I don't know if I emailed you as well, Laurissa, when I emailed Adam, because he asked me at the audition. I don't know if you remember, just like, tell me a little bit more about yourself, because I was a little older at that time. But I shared with him that I felt like God was leading me back to school and to do music, to possibly do music education. And you have spoken a lot about your own faith. Could you share more about like your kind of faith in this journey for us a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I think it's been really nice now that I can teach at a place where I can be open about my faith. That's been a really, really good thing. It's really interesting because I do teach at a Christian college. However, not all of the students are Christians.
Right.
You don't have to be a professing Christian to go to Carson Newman. And so, I'm not going to ask the student, "Are you a Christian?" I just talk about faith things as they come up organically, and then let the conversation flow. So, I think just making those connections with each student and getting to know them on an individual level, and that's the beauty of teaching applied lessons, because you can see each student one-on-one for at least a half hour a week if they're taking half-hour lessons, but sometimes an hour a week, and you really get to know the student. The student can open up or not, depending on how comfortable they are with doing so, but it's really a blessing to be able to share and to be vulnerable, I think, about faith things with them. So, and praying, I think, is a nice thing. I don't always pray before every single class. I don't really have any kind of, overarching principle about how much to do that or whatever. I just kind of do it as I feel led. And they're always very respectful, whether they are a professing Christian or not. I would say it's probably at least 60%, 65% that are professing Christians of some stripe at Carson Newman. So it's a minority that are not, but I think it's a pretty sizable minority.
Yeah, that is a larger number than
Yeah.
I thought about it.
I was a little surprised, I think, when I came here to kind of discover that. And maybe when I was teaching the music appreciation, speaking of music appreciation, Phil, the past 2 years, my first 2 years here, I taught music appreciation. And I think that maybe showed a little bit more of the general student population. I kind of gathered that some of them had not much of a church background at all. So that was interesting to me. But in the music department, it is more Christian, I would say, amongst the student body. So I am grateful. I'm grateful to be at a place where I can be open with my faith.
Yeah. How have you seen music and Christianity intersecting in your own life?
Well, a lot of the music that I do is sacred. Much of it is. So right there, it's just going hand in hand. The music that I love doing the most, because when I was talking about performing and the opera world, and I just didn't love opera. I don't love opera. I really like it, but what I love is sacred music, and especially classical sacred music. That's really what I connect with. So to sing, Bach obviously is mostly sacred in what he wrote. Amazing musician. His compositions are, of course, intellectually very difficult and what's the word? Complex, and yet he brings the faith and the heart to it as well. So singing sacred music both in church and professionally, that's certainly one way that my faith and music go hand in hand, for sure. But then again, of course, if you're doing even secular music, you don't leave your Christianity on the shelf. You bring that with you, even if it's secular words, right? Yeah. How do we do that? I don't know. That can be kind of a conversation for all of us. But there is universal truth in a lot of secular music, so you bring your faith with that as well.
Absolutely. Have you ever in your career faced a moment when there seemed to be a conflict between your faith and, whatever you were supposed to be doing professionally?
Honestly, not too much. I think it could happen, for sure, because there are works of music that are against biblical principles. There are some out there.
That's why you didn't want to be the soprano soloist in Carmina Burana.
No, no, it was literally because I could not hit those high notes.
It is freakishly high, isn't it?
I was like, there is no way I'm going to sing that solo. You're going to have to hire someone else.
And for our audience who is uninitiated, the reason that's funny is because the texts of Carmina Burana are actually quite dirty.
Right.
I'm very grateful I did it when I was teaching at a state university, because I probably could not do it.
Okay.
In my present situation.
Right.
Or if I did, I would just have to never print the translation of the text.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
Leave it to the imagination.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's been okay so far. There's been a couple of instances where some of my students have wanted to sing, some very racy things from some musicals, like Kinky Boots, for example. One of my students wanted to sing something from Kinky Boots, and I just did not feel that was appropriate for where we are. So I said no. I think I'm going to say no on that one.
Yeah. And
she was fine, she understood. So there wasn't any issue with that. I think, I don't know if lucky's the right word. So far it's been okay, but I think that it could happen where there could be a conflict with faith and, the text of certain songs or pieces or the theme. Yeah.
When I remember us going to see Carmen at the Met, which was really cool. But Carmen it's a pretty and a racy story. But I mean but I think if for me though, it's a great, maybe I don't know, maybe great is the wrong word, but it's the moral in that story is pretty striking at the end. So like
Yeah.
I guess that's an example that comes to my mind. I don't know. What do you? The
I
opera.
think that's a really good one. And I think, yeah, with all of these, especially opera, there is a lot of questionable behavior. But that's also the world, right? And
Right.
then
Yeah.
we
Yes.
have to be able to explain that to young impressionable minds, and it's okay to maybe see these things. You're playing a part, even for scenes, possibly. You are playing a part, and you're not becoming that person.
Right. Let
Yeah.
me let, let me ask you this question because I wrote down one of my questions was going to be to ask you what do you love, and you shared that. What are some of the you mentioned Bach? What are some of the who are some of the other composers, sacred composers that you enjoy singing, maybe solo music from?
Sacred, mainly, or just kind of in
Oh,
general.
you can give me general. I am asking about sacred, but you can share
Okay.
in general.
I really love singing Handel as well, but basically, but the Baroque era is kind of
Okay.
what I really enjoy the most. And of course, there's a lot of sacred music in the Baroque era. Um, Mozart is wonderful, and he's so good for the voice. He writes so well for the voice, even though it can be very kind of scary because it's so exposed. But I enjoy how Mozart feels in my voice a lot. Um, well, I'm also going to be singing Fauré. We're doing the Fauré Requiem, so there is a soprano solo as part of that, and it's a little also scary because it's quite
You're going to sound so good on
sustained.
the Pia Jesu.
I hope so. I was just literally practicing it this afternoon, so
Wow.
I enjoy Fauré in general. I just absolutely love him, and of course he wrote so many French art songs and melody and everything. So I tend to drift towards the French composers a lot. I just really love French. There's something about the Impressionism and Debussy, and I'm learning some Duparc songs. I'll be doing a faculty recital and a guest recital in Kansas in spring semester. So I've never sung Duparc before, so I'm gonna
Oh, fun.
chomp into them.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would say, kind of to answer your question, go back to that, Phil. Yeah, art song. I love art song. I love the German leader composers so much. They're just so good for the soul somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean also I think I remember you brought a professor from I mean I was gonna say Australia, but from Arkansas to come do a concert, and he basically
That's
sang
right.
24 Italian arias.
Yes.
In those beginning, I mean, I get you. I mean, they're not beginning arias, but that's like where we are, like where you all start. Everybody, you buy that book, you
I
find
know, it
out an
was
Italian aria.
so interesting that he decided to do that, and I thought that was a really great idea actually because he sang them so beautifully,
Yes.
and it's kind of cool to hear those familiar pieces sung by. Certainly he was older than you and had been singing for a while, but they're not just teaching pieces. Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
was at University of Arkansas. Now he's actually in Canada, but yeah.
Wow. Okay. One of the things maybe I want to just mention, and we time has gone by. I don't want to keep us too long, but I do want to mention that you mainly have focused on solo voice, where Adam and I are choral connectors. You mentioned that. How was that? Like what's the question I'm asking? Because we're kind of educating. We kind of think, I guess, in a group mentality where I don't know, maybe this is a false dichotomy, but you focus on the individual voice. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it does. And actually, now to go back to what I love to sing, I
Okay.
also love singing in choirs.
Yeah.
I love being a choral singer. Absolutely. And that's actually something that I want to do more of besides my church choir. I want to get some choral gigs.
You do that quite a bit, don't you, Laurissa?
I have, but
Yeah.
since COVID, it kind of
Right.
stopped happening.
Yeah.
And so so I'm trying to get back into that world again. And then I moved away and everything from where I was. There was
You're actually the only voice professor colleague I've ever had who really in her soul of souls
in my soul of
actually
souls.
enjoys choral music.
Absolutely, I love it.
I've been very fortunate, and I've always had colleagues who respect choral music and want students to do it for the musicianship that it develops and blah blah blah. But personally, you're the only one who personally actually likes it.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. So there's that part of it, Phil. But then to answer your question about the individual versus the communal, my main teaching and what I'm trained to do is to teach the individual voice through the voice lessons. My hope is that when I'm teaching, especially music education majors, that they will bring these things to their choirs.
Right.
And do as much of that as possible, training the voice in their choirs, training the beauty of the sound and how to change the sound through various ways. That's my real hope. That's why I really love teaching music education students as well, because it's really practical for them, and they can demonstrate it as well, hopefully.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Does that answer your question, Phil?
No, it doesn't. I think, Adam, you may be like, it's not a false dichotomy. Like they're like literally people are like, yes, you should maybe you shouldn't sing choral music, or maybe I don't like your choral director or whatever. Or
Right.
And I know I've heard those conversations. So yes, but right, but having the harmony between the voice faculty and the choral director, right? Because it can sometimes not be harmony there. Is what I'm hearing.
I have been so blessed, I just want to say, because I have had, since my career in academia, 4 choral director colleagues at my institutions. Isn't that amazing? In only 8 years. That's crazy.
That sounds pretty typical.
Maybe so. But we've all gotten along with each other in our the applied voice teachers and the choir directors. There's been such support and camaraderie and friendship, and it's just been so wonderful. And here it's the same. So I'm just really lucky. And of course, when Adam came to Delta State, we were just thrilled. He had such a wonderful educational background, and of course his personality was incredible. And we just knew he was going to do incredible in a good way. And we knew he was going to do wonderful things with the choir, and then he did. It was no surprise. So, and of course I made a friend.
And yes, a lifelong friendship was made for sure. Yeah. So Laurissa, we're going to move into final segments, and for those who are joining us for the first time, we always end our conversations by talking about one current event that's sticking with us for the week, and then we talk about what we learned during the episode, sort of a lesson to carry forth into the month ahead. So, Laurissa, are you game to play along?
Sure.
Awesome. So, who wants to go first with their current event that's on their mind?
I guess I'll go first to
Phil,
demonstrate.
Awesome. To demonstrate.
Being a good
Thank you, Phil, because I'm not quite ready.
Right, that's I'm demonstrating. Also, give everybody some time. I have two really quick here. I will start with the bad news and then go to the good. There was an athlete. I live in Miami, and so he plays for the Miami Dolphins. And it was pretty national controversy in the NFL because last Sunday the Sunday before last he had an injury, and they said it was a non-brain related, which is concussion. And then Thursday night he had another injury, and it was even more dramatic. And so, it's just crazy. These violent sports, and I loved it. I tried it, and so I'm just praying that he's okay. And then my second one, going back to what we were talking about seeing the beauty, I guess, in the world, like as Christians. There's the Lord of the Rings is Tolkien. What is it? How do you say his name? Did I say it right? Sorry.
Yeah, Tolkien. That's right.
Tolkien.
Yep.
There is a new series on Amazon called Rings of Power.
I've been watching it too.
You've been watching it? It is really good.
Yes.
It is really good. I mean, I think most people are like the most recent episode is has gotten better because there's more fighting. But for me,
Action,
in the most recent, that it did that I would agree. But for me in the episode, I think the most the most memorable moment for me was the confession and absolution. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. They're sitting there,
yes.
And he says, and she, I mean, like literally, it's so like, you can, as a Christian, like you can hear those words. And I'm like, even in our everyday life, we can show grace, give grace to each other. And so if you've not watched that series, you should, maybe you should watch the recent episode and then catch up. You may enjoy it a little more. Because there's a lot of exposition, and you're jumping around a lot. We're learning about characters, groups of characters everywhere. But so yes.
But I really like it. I'm glad. I'm so glad that you're watching it too.
I have heard of it. I've heard of it, but
have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Its premiere had 25 million viewers, the most in streaming history.
Oh my goodness! Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
great.
Anyway, I'm a fan. I know. I don't know the whole the Lord of the Rings, canon well. Those who do are apparently quite upset by how much it differs from Tolkien's vision. I'm just taking it for what it is, and that is really beautifully shot, really high production values, really good acting, solid storyline, cinematic production, and some pretty compelling storytelling. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, my current event. Well, first of all, Phil, you are in Miami, which was not really hit much by Ian, correct?
Right. Yes. No. Thank God.
Yeah, but I mean, so obviously, I'm thinking about the devastation in Southwest Miami with the
Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Oh, sorry, Southwest Florida. Yeah, thank you. With Ian. And I'm also thinking about the escalation of the war in Ukraine with Putin annexing 4 territories and conscripting 300,000 additional troops. And the world is so full of bad stuff. But that's what's been weighing on me this week. All right, Laurissa, how about you?
Oh. Well, I would say also Hurricane Ian. It's just been interesting to keep up with what's going on. It's just really so interesting how the death toll has been kind of a gradual thing. It didn't seem to be all at once, but as the days have unfolded, it's just gotten worse and worse. So that's really sad to see, of course. So there's that. I kind of tend to keep a pulse on the higher education kind of world and reading articles about teacher shortages actually. And I read a really interesting one recently actually about a school district in Arizona who are hiring teachers from the Philippines. And they were highly trained in the Philippines. They were awarded outstanding teacher and came to the States for this opportunity, and thinking that it would be something that it wasn't. They came, and it's so tough. It's just so tough. A lot of it is the behavioral problems in the classroom. And so just reading about how these new teachers are just trying to stay in control and keep order. I mean, one of them said, we're not jungle animals, so we need rules and regulations. And of course, then the kids just thought that was hilarious, and they don't really, take that seriously. So it's just so interesting. It's an interesting state of affairs that we have now in the educational system in this country. So that's one of the most recent things that I've been reading.
Yep. That resonates big time.
Yep.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes, with me too. Yes.
Yeah.
So much.
All right. I am going to go first, if you wouldn't mind, with what I learned this week or what's sticking with me. And I am going to carry with me into the month ahead what Laurissa said earlier in the episode about being an ambassador. Not since she decided, although I'm sure she would have been an excellent ambassador of the political sort, although she did not decide to be that sort of ambassador, she is still an ambassador through music. And I'm going to take that with me in the month ahead and be thinking about how I too might be as good an ambassador as Laurissa Backlin.
All right. Well, thank you.
What about you, Phil?
The part that really resonated with me is the I don't love opera, but I love sacred music part, because I feel like I'm probably in the same boat with you. Not that I don't like opera or don't love it, but I think I love sacred music more. And so that really spoke to me. So I was kind of trying to see, mine some composers. Although we're very different voice types, but I was like looking for you to share some composers with me, so I could go look for them. But yes.
Well, I remember when you sang "Ride On King Jesus" at Covenant. Do you remember that?
I think I do. Yes.
You remember it better than he does.
I remember it, and we loved it. The whole congregation absolutely loved it. So yeah, definitely keep singing sacred music, or any kind of music, of course, because you have a very versatile voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so is it my turn? What am I?
It's your turn.
Okay, I think for me, I'm going to remember the camaraderie of this whole event, this whole conversation with the three of us, and how we have kind of a long time ago connection, right? But this thing that we do with music, it's such a really wonderful way to continue these connections.
Yes.
Friendships are deep through music. And especially in the educational world. So even if we don't see each other or communicate as much as we would like to, the bond is strong. It's there. It will never, ever be broken. And so I think that if that's okay to kind of say it like that, just this wonderful experience of reconnecting again with the two of you.
Yes.
Absolutely. I am very grateful for the excuse to reconnect with you, Laurissa.
Me too.
Yeah. So
I was
thank
thrilled.
you for joining us on
It's
this
my
episode.
pleasure. I had a great, great time. Wonderful.
Yes,
So
thank
did
you.
we, right, Phil?
Say it again.
So did we. Had a great time.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can you can come back and we can talk about some of those other things that you shared. So
I would love to. Anytime.
Awesome. All right, Phil, is there anything else for the good of the order?
no, that's it. That's it. But thank you again, Laurissa. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laurissa.
My pleasure, and it's just so good to see both of you, and I hope you have a really, really wonderful rest of the week.
Oh,
Same to you.
thank you so much. You
Thank
too.
you.
All right. Well then, dear listener, I will say bye for now.
Adios.
Bye-bye.